it's interesting how different, from university to university, the impact is from,
Right.
Some universities literally laying off staff and sending back equipment for projects that was already ordered.
Yep.
To actively saying, hey, this is a great time to actually look at strategy for our next generation platforms.
Hello everybody, this is Chris and welcome to another AV Asia Pacific Lockdown podcast. Today I'm with Graham Barrett. Graham is the Manager of Strategic Partnerships at HARMAN Professional Solutions in Australia. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.
That's a pleasure. So let's hop straight into it. What's happening with HARMAN? Where have you come from? Where are you now? What are you doing? Talk to me.
Well, Chris, it's been a fairly exciting year for HARMAN over the last little while here in Australia. As you know, earlier this year, we realigned the distribution of a couple of the product lines here in Australia. Our existing distribution for our lighting and touring and retail products in Showtech and CMI are very strong distributors for us and have been doing a fantastic job. So the realignment was very much on that install audio, install video and control platform. So the JBL, BSS, Crown, AKG and AMX, which is, as you know, my first passion. The install ranges for those brands, and we realigned the distribution in Australia to a company that hopefully many of you know and hopefully most of you love in Madison AV, who are a fantastic organisation and really are taking this HARMAN product line to the next level in Australia from a distribution perspective. Cool. So very exciting in terms of the distribution change, but also, as you know, part of that realignment is a local team here in Australia. So for the first time, we have a team of greater than one or two here in Australia. We have 6 of us here in Australia, focused on supporting both the end user strategic partners, which is my responsibility, the channel partners, which a couple of names will be familiar to many of your audience in Richard Nagel and Dan Anderson. Yep. Are focused on supporting, and then we have a couple of, I call them deep domain technology specialists, but it's been pointed out to me that sounds like something you get after a long flight. So they just refer to themselves as solution specialists or technology specialists. Yep. In Nick Groot and Peter Moses, who are the video and control and audio specialists for us, respectively. So it's a significant increase. Historically, we've only had 1 or 2 people here in Australia, and so it's, as I say, part of this realignment with Madison in the install audio, video and control space to have a local presence here. Sure. to really engage with the customers and provide that additional layer of support on top of what the very capable Madison team are doing.
Sure. A lot of people are missing not talking to you, Graham. What excuse would I have to be able to pick up the phone and chat with you?
Very little at this point, Chris, to be honest with you. I get really excited when the phone rings. And that's not because the customers aren't speaking to me, Chris. Obviously, they're all speaking to me.
Exactly.
But it's it's an interesting time. I think my main responsibility is the end users, as you know. So it's predominantly the universities, the defence organisations that we support, and some of the key government agencies and corporate companies who are big users, big consumers, and big partners of HARMAN. Yep. The universities specifically, obviously, have just gone through one of the craziest times that I think any industry sector has. I know you had Scott from Swinburne on a couple of weeks ago, and I spoke to him the morning that he was told that all of his team had to leave within 3 hours.
Wow.
And that's an incredibly complex time for them, and they're just now coming out of the end of it, understanding what working from home looks like, what access they're going to have. So for the university sector, it's an incredibly difficult time, and for some of the other, particularly the government sectors, they're still very focused on delivering outcomes. They're, the courts, defence, for example, are still, screaming ahead with a number of major projects, and obviously challenges there in getting the integrators to be able to provide them.
Yep.
So yeah, pretty much, Chris. If you had an opportunity or a requirement to talk to someone at Harman, I'd be more than happy to take your call.
All right.
As would the broader team.
Cool. So who you've had a few months to put your feet under the desk, but you've only had sort of about 4 weeks to get your head around the current crisis, like the rest of us. But who are the winners and who are the losers out of COVID in commercial AV?
Yeah, sure. I think, if you take a step back to, where is there still money flowing, that's very much in my experience to date, the government departments, defence, justice, although they're certainly a little bit tentative in some cases about, committing to long project timeframes and things like that. There's certainly very little impact on, I guess, their funding and therefore their requirement to go and deliver. So I think that's going to be an area where we're going to still see some strong spending and some strong growth. So the community who support those sorts of customers, I think will, I don't know if you call them winners, but perhaps will be less impacted. The university sector is probably the biggest single sector that I'm very heavily involved with, and it's interesting how different, from university to university, the impact is. From some universities literally laying off staff and sending back equipment for projects that was already ordered, to actively saying, hey, this is a great time to actually look at strategy for our next generation platforms and our whatever the technology hurdles that they currently face. But I think the university sector is certainly, you can read in the press, there's a lot of pain in that sector because of the impact of foreign students.
So
it'll be
is
interesting to see.
Is it as simple as just the ones that are more exposed to that market are going to do it toughest, like Monash?
I certainly, in the conversations I've had, all of the universities, even those who have very little exposure, are in a difficult time where there's been a hold on projects, budgets, if not necessarily cut, then frozen. That's probably the best term. Budgets have been frozen, and that's something I've heard from a lot of our partners.
Sure.
Now, the interesting thing there is, the universities are in a very interesting position that if the government does choose to stimulate the economy, then some of those projects and, thawing them, for want of a better term, will be a great way of the government investing and getting that money directly into the economy. So hopefully, this is very much a Graham Barrett view as opposed to a Harman view. Hopefully we'll see some of that stimulus going into some of those sectors like universities. But I think it's fair to say that there's no one in the industry not currently feeling the impacts. I think everyone is dealing with the impact on budgets and on the impact on just the ability to engage in business. Much as we all love, well, most of us love the ability to come downstairs and go to work in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, or slightly more, or even less in some cases, slightly more now as the weather's getting a bit chillier. I think a lot of us are missing that personal contact, and even those of us like myself who are perhaps a little bit more introverted and don't consider personal contact as an important thing, are really finding that lack of engagement and that lack of human interaction quite challenging. So I think like every industry, there'll be personal and professional impacts. But I think certainly as we start to see the restrictions easing, I was reading something today about how bullish some musicians are, for example, about the recovery, because I think it was one of the guys from Hunters and Collectors saying everyone is going to want to go to a pub and listen to a band.
Yeah.
So, potentially some of that will help those industries rebound.
Sure.
I think, to be fair, anyone affected by foreign travellers, and universities are a big one there, the impact is potentially going to be longer. As we say, hopefully there's some support from the government into those sectors.
Yep. So, can you speak to the process or how Harman arrived at selecting Madison as their sort of AV installation representative in Australia?
Absolutely. And, it's certainly something I have not a huge amount of visibility on, because I was very much came into the Harman fold after that whole engagement and process. But, it's definitely fair to say that it was one of the biggest projects that the Harman Asia Pac team have embarked on in recent years. I mean, Australia is a massive market for Harman in Asia Pac, big market for Harman globally. And as we all know, there's been some instability in the distribution arrangements for Harman over the last few years, and so there was a big focus on finding the right partner for the install audio, video, and control to sit alongside CMI and Showtech on the retail, touring, and lighting sides.
Yep.
So Harman were the depth of engagement was significant. There was a number of different distributors who the team out of Singapore engaged with. The due diligence was significant, I'm told. And look, again, what I've been told is that Madison were head and shoulders above all of the other alternatives, and there are some fantastic organisations, I'm told, who were part of that process. So,
yep.
The thing about Madison, I guess a lot of us don't understand, and certainly I found out at the same time you and everyone else did, that Madison were the new distributor, is actually the size and scale of Madison. We tend to think of them as a company with some awesome, obviously, cable brands and some fantastic accessory brands. But that's really just the broadcast and AV team within Madison. The actual Madison technology business is significantly larger, many times larger than certainly a lot of the AV distribution companies that we know.
Yep.
That obviously gave them the financial strength to take on a brand like Harman, the brands of Harman, I should say, in the install space, and invest in a team to be able to take them to market, which we've already seen, them building up an incredibly capable team, and they continue to invest in that team going forward. Their first effort was to build a support team, kind of counterintuitive to the way a lot of companies work. Generally the first thing people focus on is sales and then support. We were very impressed by Madison's approach, that the first thing that they looked to build was that support capability and the logistics capability, so continuity of supply and continuity of support could be delivered.
Yep.
Great management and leadership team within Madison, some excellent relationships formed as part of the whole process. And look, they are also a fantastic group of people. Ken Kyle and his team down in Sydney in that Madison AV group, highly capable and, really deeply understand the industry on a broad range of fronts. So one of the nicest things was, coming on board and meeting the Madison team and not having to teach them how weird the AV industry was, being able to say, so this is the way things work. Yes, we know that's the way things work. So that was kind of fun, kind of disturbing as well, that we all sat there and told the same stories over a couple of beers on our first night out together.
Yeah, that's good though. That's excellent. So what are you excited about with Harman, Graham? What's sort of just over the horizon that you can give us like the merest sniff of?
Well, this is just between you and me,
Good.
obviously.
Well, yeah, sure.
No one else
You've seen our YouTube numbers, obviously.
Look, it's an incredibly exciting time to join Harman for all of us here in Australia. There's been an enormous effort to re-architect Harman Professional along the lines of the very successful other divisions within Harman. So, as you know, Harman Lifestyle is with their brands like JBL are absolutely dominating certain sectors of the retail market, which is super exciting. And so what Harman have done is over the last several years, Harman Professional restructured the division. And that was not an insignificant task. Reorganising, what was many different, as you know, organisations that had come into Harman through acquisition, like Crown, like BSS, like AMX, and taking those separate individual organisations with all the duplication that goes along with that, and melding that into really an organisation which leveraged all of the capability of those organisations, but all of the organisational and manufacturing power of Harman was a Herculean task. The exciting point is that it's now done. So joining Harman now is incredibly excited because we come into an incredibly streamlined and incredibly capable organisation.
Yep.
And really, you've seen the announcements with some of the leadership changes within Harman, Harman Professional. Got a new CEO. Brian Devine is a fantastic human being, and most importantly, he's a product guy. He's actually an audio product guy. So he's, I liken it to building an incredible Lego set. It's incredibly time consuming. I actually literally have a Lego roller coaster right here, which is where the idea came from. So, actually building that Lego roller coaster takes hours, and it's incredibly difficult and challenging and time consuming. But then when it's complete, actually giving it to someone to play with is an incredibly exciting time. And I feel that under Brian's leadership, a lot of us within Harman have this awesome Lego set to play with now. All of these, patents and R&D and right down to things like DSP algorithms, which are owned by Harman, it's an incredibly broad set of intellectual property. And under Brian's leadership, taking that and turning it into the next generation platforms for video, audio, control, and lighting is I guess the opportunity that we have. And being, we talk a lot about software and the future being very software driven, and Harman is incredibly committed to that. We've talked in the past about a
gazillion software engineers in your automotive.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. It's the automotive division, and there's an entire division which is called the Connected Services division.
That's right.
And that is entirely software engineers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and look, there's a huge amount of learning between the divisions within Harman, and leveraging some of those skills in the Connected Service division into what is the professional software division, working on a platform which we've talked about in the past called CloudWorks. Really is an incredible, view of what the next generation looks like. And Harman are very much a company focused on the future whilst leveraging and I guess honouring the past with, brands like Brown and BSS, AKG and even AMX. And although we all, see software as the future, the reality is, and some of the people listening to this will roll their eyes when I say this because I've said it probably a million times, human beings are fundamentally analog devices. We always need something, a transducer or a control surface to interact with the network and ultimately software. And so Harman are very focused on that human interaction piece, be that as we're all doing it today on a one-on-one basis with. You will have seen some marketing of our AKG Lyra microphone, for example, right up obviously to when we all get to go to concerts again. The new the JBL A series line arrays. This is all part of the Harman family and a very important part of it. But the CloudWorks software layer is really what takes all of those, in the past disparate components and turns it into a complete holistic solution that can be in its entirety or part of, a more complex integration solution, which, as we know, is what our industry does so well.
Yeah, but I'm an Australian, Graham, and I don't like to be pigeonholed into sort of buying into one environment.
Yes, indeed. And as I said, there's a reason why our industry in the AV space is called an integration industry. It's because, and I have been an integrator, I have been a distributor, and now working at a manufacturer. I guess I've worn many hats in the industry, and I deeply and keenly appreciate that, our customers, be they the end user, the consultant, the integrator, have to be able to add value. And, when you have a manufacturer saying, no, just buy everything from us, it'll all work, it'll be great, that really does almost undermine the value proposition of some of those key partners in the supply chain. So Harman have, and I was explaining this to someone earlier today, Harman have come very much from an audio background, as you know, and brands like Crown, BSS, JBL they've never been a complete solution in their own right. I mean, an amplifier, if you look at a Crown amplifier, an amplifier is just one part of the signal chain.
Sure.
So all of those Harman products have always been built to be integrated, to be part of a larger system. And that larger system will always involve brands and products from elsewhere. As you say, in Australia, the best of breed concept and being able to take a technology or a platform from one manufacturer and integrate it with another is fundamental to, as I say, the value proposition that our industry offers. So, and this is really key to the whole Harman philosophy at a hardware level, but also at a software level. So, some of our most recent products, SVSI, for example, has a full open API. You can integrate it with anything.
Yep.
We did a project integrating it with a poker machine software platform, for example, a couple of years ago. So that same philosophy, and I use that term advisedly, is also being taken in the software platforms that we're bringing to market in CloudWorks.
Yep. So
that you can, bring together, obviously, the Harman components, but also other components in the industry, and deliver a complete outcome. I mean, as recently as this week, we saw an example of this with a multi-branded platform being certified for EN54. That is what our industry expects of vendors and manufacturers like Harman, and from the hardware through the software is very much part of that key philosophy that we bring to market.
Yep, that's good. Good answer. Nothing further, Your Honour. I think I can let you go. Thank you for your time. Look forward to having another excuse to phone you up.
Chris, and look, thank you and AV for running these sessions. I think, as I said, we all miss that human interaction. I'm not going to even suggest that anyone misses hearing my voice, because many people will tell you otherwise. But it is great to hear all of the interviews that you've done and hear how everyone's dealing with the situation and trying to stay together as a community until we can
get
all
out
get
the
together
other
and have a
side.
beer again.
Yeah, sounds good.
Absolutely.
Bring it on.